What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So I want to just go ahead and say thank you for everyone who watched my video talking about Gotham Knights not having Arkham combat and talking about some of the combat systems and what exactly those systems look like. Because for me, I thought visually the closest game, and even in a sense combat systems wise, the game that Gotham Knights resembles the most so far is the Assassin's Creed games, and that is basically Odyssey, and for some people maybe Valhalla. I've only played Odyssey, and some of you have said Valhalla did have some, aspects too that they could see that's similar to Odyssey. The difference mainly that we have here is the perfect parry that you have in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and just the fact that your character can wield different kinds of weapons. I think that's pretty much it. Now, one of my audience members went ahead and said something that I thought was very interesting, and it was actually somewhat confirmed. So, Brian, shout out to you for putting that idea out there. So, one of my audience members, Brian, said Spider-Man and Assassin's Creed had a baby, Gotham Knights. Now, here's what I found out. I saw this morning and I said, man, this is actually spot on. Because I was watching a preview yesterday that was done by a gentleman named Bruce. He worked in a gaming channel setup where he and a bunch of other folks were doing gaming. They were actually pretty funny about it. I don't know if it's Insider Gaming or Inside Gaming or something. And Bruce got to play this, and he recorded his footage, and so he was streaming it to his community and answering questions. And one of the members of his community said something, and I think they asked him and said, does it, play like Spider-Man? And then he said, yes, it definitely plays like Spider-Man. So I guess we have this, interesting, combination of these two video games where one of them, which is pretty much Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and those Assassin's Creed games anyways, seem to have the framework in terms of the combat system and such, and then there are aspects that seem like the game is trying to follow some of the steps of what Spider-Man and Miles Morales have done. This is also really interesting because the Arkham games were there to inspire the Spider-Man development team. I remember Brian Intihar in an interview, he mentioned that, the Arkham games were not to be seen as competitions, but games that inspired. I remember him making that quote because their game, the Spider-Man game, was actually, inspired by the Arkham games. I remember on Twitter just yesterday, somebody was talking about something and somebody mentioned and said, the Spider-Man games take a hot dump on, the Arkham games. And I laughed and I replied and said, wait, how is that possible when the Arkham games inspired the Spider-Man games? And this person went ahead and jumped out and said, well, the Arkham games were inspired by Spider-Man 2, so what's the big deal? So I cited the article where Brian Intihar said that and asked him, where did they get that claim from? Because ideally, I've never seen anything about the developers at Rocksteady saying that they were inspired by the Spider-Man games. Not saying that it probably wasn't a thing, just saying that we haven't necessarily seen them put themselves out there and say, oh yeah, we got our inspiration from the Spider-Man games. Instead, what we have is they have a story on Reddit where they talked about Stephen Hill himself anyways, he talked about how the very first time they presented the game to their publisher, the prototype, they were in a room with two people playing this game, and before you know, by the middle of the play session, this small room was filled with 50 people because somebody went out and got somebody else, somebody went out and got somebody else. It's actually on a Reddit AMA. And he said that was the moment they knew they had something that was quite special in their coffers. And so I think it's nice to see these games taking lessons from all of these other games. I think right now there are a lot of people that are kind of held up with, Gotham Knights is not Arkham. Do yourself a favor and maybe desist of that notion, because I myself, I'm an Arkham fan, but I cannot help what another creative team decides to do. They didn't give me the job of doing it. I have done my comparisons with Arkham for this game, and I've actually gotten to see, that there will be some challenges for this game in terms of how it's going to be a sell. But for the most part, once you realize and understand where the game stands in the industry, you realize that, okay, it appears that the developers went in a whole different direction, but they went with proven standards that another game had already set. And I can understand, too. I remember, Grimjaw, one of my audience members, mentioned that, the Assassin's Creed games did cause a lot of stir when they moved it to this, in quote, Witcher class of games, which is open world and, the combat, the fighting, and all that stuff is really interesting. But guess what? Odyssey is the only Assassin's Creed game that I played and beat. For some reason, the classic Assassin's Creed formula did not really appeal to me. And granted, I didn't play a lot of them to kind of keep trying to give it a chance. So I owe it to the old classics to give it a chance. One of my audience members told me to, get Assassin's Creed 3, and I was gonna like the combat. So shout out to you, buddy. I downloaded it yesterday. Apparently, Ubisoft had been giving these things out for free, and I've been, copying my own free copies on the Uplay. So, anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section, because I think it's really interesting that this is actually being made as a comparison from the previewers, and then from the visual side, we're seeing that there is some kind of a similarity. It's like, this weird synergy in a sense. But I guess at the end of the day, game feel is probably where that's coming from. Because the way the combat animations are, they're kind of slow in a sense. Spider-Man seems a little faster. And Spider-Man, you don't break your combos. You can chain about 200 combos or more in the Spider-Man game if you can keep going. So I think Spider-Man is more of a free flow aspect, but then the movement of the Knights, especially Nightwing, is very, very similar to the movement of Spider-Man himself, or Miles. There's so much dodging and weaving and spinning in the air, and it's just so acrobatic, and I think people can actually see those similarities if you were to pay very close attention. But thanks so much once again for watching the video. I really appreciate you guys so much. If you're on, the platform here and you're new, make sure that you join the community. And if you already have, hit the notification bell. I'll be dropping as much Gotham Knights content as I can get my hands on. So peace out.